The afternoon light filtered through the lace curtains of the Victorian house on Laurelhurst Avenue, casting familiar shadows across the hardwood floors that Eleanor Miller had walked for 35 years. She sat in what used to be her living room, though these days it didn't feel like hers anymore, cradling a cup of Earl Grey tea that had gone cold an hour ago. 65 years old, and Eleanor had become a ghost in her own home. The realization hit her every time she heard Derek Sullivan's heavy footsteps on the stairs above. Her son-in-law moved through the house like he owned it, which she supposed with bitter irony was exactly what he wanted people to think. "Babe, where's my protein shake?" Derek's voice boomed from the kitchen, sharp and entitled. "I made it already. It's in the fridge." Madison's reply came quick, almost apologetic. Eleanor's daughter had developed that tone over the past 6 months, the voice of someone constantly trying to prevent an explosion. Eleanor's gaze drifted to the wedding photo on the mantel. Richard Miller, her husband of 32 years, looked back at her with those kind eyes that had seen her through everything from their broke newlywed days to her retirement from the IRS 3 years ago. He'd died of a heart attack 18 months ago, and Eleanor swore she could still smell his pipe tobacco sometimes, though Derek had thrown out Richard's entire collection. "That old man shit stinks up the whole house," Derek had said, tossing the antique tobacco holder into a trash bag like it was garbage. Not a family heirloom. Not a memory, just garbage. Eleanor had said nothing. She'd been saying nothing a lot lately. The house felt different now. Wrong. The kind of wrong that creeps in slowly, like black mold behind walls, until one day you realize the whole structure is compromised. Derek and Madison had moved in 6 months ago, right after their startup failed. Derek's words, delivered with the kind of smooth confidence that made you want to believe him. They were temporarily broke and needed a place just for a few months, while they got back on their feet. Eleanor, still raw from Richard's death and aching with loneliness, had said yes immediately. Madison was her only child. Family helped family. That's what Richard would have wanted. Except Richard would have seen through Derek's bullshit in about 30 seconds. Richard had been a claims adjuster for 30 years. He could spot a fraud from a mile away. He'd never trusted Derek. Not since Madison brought him home 5 years ago with that too-white smile and stories about his real estate empire that never quite added up. Richard had whispered to Eleanor one night after Derek and Madison left from dinner, "that boy's selling something, and I don't think it's houses." Eleanor had defended Derek back then, told Richard he was being paranoid, told him to give the guy a chance. She'd been wrong. The evidence was everywhere now, if you knew how to look. And Eleanor Miller, former senior auditor at the IRS with a 30-year career specializing in financial fraud, definitely knew how to look. She glanced around the living room, her living room, and cataloged the changes. Richard's leather reading chair, moved to the basement, replaced by Derek's ridiculous gaming setup. Her grandmother's hope chest, shoved into the garage because it doesn't match the aesthetic we're going for. The corner where she used to do her morning crossword puzzles. Now Derek's home gym, complete with dumbbells he never used and resistance bands still in their packaging. Even the smell had changed. The house used to smell like lavender sachets and old books. Now it reeked of Derek's Axe body spray and the takeout containers he left scattered around like territorial markers. "Hey, Eleanor!" Derek appeared in the doorway, protein shake in hand, his gym shorts riding low on his hips. At 42, he clearly thought he still looked like he did at 25. He didn't. "You gonna sit there all day staring into space, or are you gonna actually do something productive?" Eleanor forced a smile. "Just enjoying my tea, Derek." "Yeah, well, maybe enjoy it somewhere else? I got some clients calling in an hour, and I need the living room for my Zoom setup, professional image and all that." He said it like it was reasonable, like she was the one being difficult. "Of course," Eleanor said quietly, standing with her cold tea. "I'll just be in my room." "Thanks, Eleanor. You're a real team player." Derek flashed that smile, the one that had probably charmed Madison into marrying him, and disappeared back into the kitchen. Eleanor climbed the stairs slowly, feeling every one of her 65 years in her knees. Her bedroom was at the end of the hall, the smallest bedroom, because Derek and Madison had claimed the master suite since we're a couple and need more space. She passed what used to be her home office. The door was closed. It was always closed now. "I need a private workspace for my real estate business," Derek had explained, moving her desk out and his gaming computer in. "You understand, right? Can't have clients hearing background noise." Eleanor had agreed because what else could she do? Kick her daughter and son-in-law out onto the street? Except Derek didn't seem to have many clients. The phone never rang. No one ever stopped by for showings. For a real estate agent, Derek was remarkably unbusy. Eleanor sat on her bed, the bed she used to share with Richard, and stared at the wall. 30 years as an IRS auditor. 47 cases of major fraud detected. $23 million recovered. Commendations, awards, respect. And now she couldn't even watch TV in her own living room. Richard, she thought, I really screwed this up, didn't I? But then, from somewhere deep in her chest, she felt something flicker. Something that had been dormant for months. That old auditor's instinct. The one that could spot a discrepancy in a 1,000-page tax return. The one that could smell a fraud scheme 3 transactions deep. That instinct was waking up, and it was pissed. Friday evening, 7:30 p.m. Eleanor had learned to time her activities around Derek's schedule. He usually disappeared into his office after dinner, which meant she could have a few hours of peace in the living room. She settled into the couch, the one piece of furniture Derek hadn't replaced yet, and turned on PBS. They were running a documentary about the Watergate scandal, part of a series on political corruption. It was exactly the kind of thing Eleanor loved. Meticulous investigation, paper trails, the slow unraveling of lies. It reminded her of her best days at the IRS, when she'd cracked a multi-state tax fraud scheme that had been running for 7 years. The thrill of matching receipts to bank statements, finding the one transaction that didn't make sense, following the money until the whole house of cards collapsed. God, she missed that feeling. Missed feeling competent, useful, sharp. On screen, reporters were explaining how Deep Throat had leaked information to expose presidential corruption. Eleanor leaned forward, absorbed. The living room door slammed open. Derek stood in the doorway, already radiating irritation. His eyes swept from Eleanor to the TV, and his lip curled. Jesus Christ, this boomer shit again? He stalked across the room. Eleanor, seriously, how many times are you going to watch these old people documentaries? I enjoy them, Eleanor said evenly. They're educational. Educational? Derek laughed, sharp and mean. Babe, he called toward the kitchen. Your mom's getting educated about shit that happened 50 years ago. Madison appeared in the doorway, dish towel in hand. She looked tired. She always looked tired lately. Derek, just let her watch. Nah, you know what? I'm done with this. Derek grabbed the TV remote from the coffee table. Derek, please don't, Eleanor started. We're not running a damn nursing home here, Eleanor. He pressed the power button, but the TV stayed on. Eleanor had the cable box remote tucked safely beside her. Derek's face flushed. Give me the remote. I was watching that. Yeah, and you're wasting electricity on outdated propaganda. This house needs to evolve, Eleanor. We're trying to build something modern here, and you're stuck in the Stone Age. It's a documentary about... I don't give a shit what it's about. Derek's voice jumped an octave. This is my space now. I live here. I pay bills. You don't pay bills, Eleanor said quietly. The words slipped out before she could stop them. The room went very still. Derek's eyes narrowed. Excuse me? You don't pay bills, Eleanor repeated, louder this time. I've checked the joint account. There have been no contributions from you or Madison in 6 months. Are you fucking serious right now? Derek took a step closer. We're contributing by being here, by keeping you company, by making sure you don't turn into some sad old lady who dies alone watching black and white TV. Derek, come on, Madison started. No, Madison, your mom needs to hear this. Derek turned back to Eleanor, and there was something ugly in his expression now, something that made Eleanor's stomach clench. You'd be rotting in some state-run elder care facility if it wasn't for us. You should be grateful. We're even here, putting up with your outdated habits and your depressing-ass stories about your dead husband. The mention of Richard hit like a slap. Eleanor stood up slowly. This is my house. Your house? Derek laughed. You mean the house that's falling apart? The house with the leaky roof we had to fix? The house that you can't maintain alone? I never asked you to. No, but we did it anyway, because we're family. Derek grabbed the HDMI cable connecting the TV to the cable box. Derek, don't... He yanked it out. The screen went black. There. Problem solved. Derek tossed the cable onto the floor. Maybe now you'll do something actually useful with your time, like meal prep, or laundry. You know, Contribute to the household instead of just sitting on your ass watching TV. Eleanor stared at the disconnected cable lying on the hardwood floor. Something about it, the violence of the gesture, the casual cruelty, made everything crystallize. This wasn't about the TV. It had never been about the TV. This was about control, about making her feel small in her own home, about erasing her piece by piece until there was nothing left but a grateful old lady who knew her place. Eleanor looked up at Derek, then past him to Madison. Her daughter stood in the doorway, dish towel twisted between her hands. Their eyes met. Defend me, Eleanor thought. Please, Madison, say something. Anything. Madison's mouth opened, then closed, then opened again. Mom, she said softly, and Eleanor's heart lifted for just a second. Derek's right. You need to be more flexible. We're trying to build a modern household here. Your habits are stuck in the past, and it's creating tension. Maybe it's time to adjust. Eleanor felt something break inside her chest. Not her heart. That had broken when Richard died. This was different. This was the last fragile thread of hope that her daughter was still on her side. Madison wasn't a victim of Derek's manipulation. Madison had chosen him, over her. I see, Eleanor said quietly. Derek smirked. Good, I'm glad we had this talk. Real productive. Now I got a conference call at 8, so I need this room. You can watch TV in your bedroom if you want. We got you that little 13-inch from Target, remember? He left, already pulling out his phone, stepping over the disconnected cable like it was trash. Madison lingered for a moment. Mom, I know it seems harsh, but Derek's trying to help. You have to admit, you've been kind of stuck lately, since Dad died. Get out, Eleanor said softly. Mom, get out. Madison's face crumpled for a second, but then she straightened her shoulders and left. Eleanor stood alone in the living room. The documentary was over. She'd missed the ending. The cable lay on the floor like a dead snake. She bent down slowly and picked it up, examined it. The connector was fine. Derek had just yanked it free, but it wasn't damaged. Everything can be reconnected, Eleanor thought, if you know how. She sat back down on the couch, cable in hand, and stared at nothing. 30 years tracking financial criminals. 30 years following paper trails and finding patterns in chaos. 30 years training her mind to see what other people missed. And she'd missed everything happening right under her nose. But she wasn't missing it anymore. Eleanor Miller, former senior IRS auditor, widow, mother, ghost, felt something cold and sharp settle in her chest. She wasn't going to cry. She wasn't going to rage. She wasn't going to have a breakdown. She was going to do what she did best. She was going to investigate, document, and expose. Derek Sullivan, she thought. You have no idea who you're fucking with. Eleanor didn't sleep that night. She lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, listening to Derek snoring through the wall, Madison's lighter breathing, the house settling around her. Richard used to tell her she had a dangerous mind when she got into auditor mode. You're like a bloodhound when you smell fraud, he'd laugh. Relentless. She'd always taken it as a compliment. Now, in the darkness, she let that bloodhound off its leash. The cable incident wasn't isolated. It was part of a pattern. Eleanor's mind began cataloging everything she'd observed over the past 6 months, organizing it the way she used to organize evidence for fraud cases. Financial anomalies. 1. Derek claimed to be a real estate agent, but Eleanor had never heard him take a single phone call from a client. No showings, no open houses, no business cards. 2. Madison said she was actively job hunting, but Eleanor never saw her doing interviews. No updated resume on the home computer. No networking events. 3. The joint checking account, the one Eleanor had added Madison to after Richard died, just in case of emergencies, had been steadily draining. Small amounts at first. $200 here, $500 there. But consistent. 4. Credit card bills were arriving addressed to Eleanor, but with charges she didn't recognize. $450 at Best Buy, $890 at Dick's Sporting Goods, $1,200 at Apple Store. 5. Derek had expensive new things. Apple Watch Ultra, $799. Golf clubs, $3,000. A new MacBook Pro, $2,500. For someone who was broke, he sure spent a lot. Behavioral red flags. 1. Derek had slowly taken over every shared space in the house. First the living room, then the dining room, Better for my workspace. Then the garage. Need room for my gym equipment. Now Eleanor couldn't access 60% of her own home without disturbing Derek's work. 2. He'd systematically removed or hidden Richard's belongings. The pipe collection, the vintage whiskey decanter, the Navy medals from Richard's service. All gone, to help Eleanor move on from grief. 3. Derek controlled the household schedule. Dinner times. TV time. When Eleanor could have guests over, never because we need our privacy. When she could use the kitchen. 4. He'd started criticizing everything Eleanor did. How she dressed. Why do you wear those old lady cardigans? What she ate. More bread? Carbs are killing you. How she spent her time. You just sit around all day. Classic control tactics. Isolation. Criticism. Gaslighting. Eleanor had seen it 100 times in fraud cases. Abusers used the same playbook whether they were stealing from the government or from their own families. The locked room. Most suspicious of all, Derek's office, her former office. The door was always locked. Always. Client confidentiality, Derek said whenever Eleanor asked about it. Real estate deals are sensitive. Can't have people snooping. But real estate agents didn't lock their offices. They wanted to show properties, show listings, be accessible. What was Derek hiding in there? At 3 a.m., Eleanor gave up on sleep. She went to her closet and pulled out a box from the top shelf. Inside, her old work files from the IRS. She flipped through investigation reports she'd compiled over the years. Embezzlement schemes, shell companies, forged signatures, money laundering. She'd been so good at this once. Scary good. There was a reason the IRS had kept promoting her. She could spot patterns that other auditors missed. Could find the one receipt that didn't match, the one signature that looked slightly off, the one transaction that made everything else suspicious. Eleanor pulled out a blank notebook, one of the moleskins Richard had bought her for Christmas, back when she was still working. At the top of the first page, she wrote, Project Accountability. Then, methodically, she began documenting everything. Subject Derek Sullivan, age 42, married to Madison Miller, residence 2847 Laurelhurst Avenue, Eleanor Miller's property, deed in her name only. Claimed occupation, real estate agent. Employer, claims to be independent/self-employed. Financial contribution to household, $0 verified in 6 months. Red flags. No verifiable real estate business. Expensive purchases despite claiming bankruptcy. Access to joint account with Eleanor Miller, asterisk. Controlling behavior, household spaces, asterisk. Locked office. Contents unknown. Eleanor's hand moved faster across the page. Muscle memory from 3 decades of investigations kicking in. She made a list of things she needed to verify. 1. Access joint bank account. Check for unauthorized transactions. 2. Review credit card statements in detail. 3. Investigate Derek's actual employment status. 4. Determine what's in the locked office. 5. Check property records. Ensure deed hasn't been tampered with. 6. Talk to Madison privately. Assess her level of involvement. The last one made Eleanor pause. Madison, her baby girl. The child she'd raised to be honest, ethical, strong. Was Madison a victim here, or a co-conspirator? Eleanor's stomach twisted. She wanted to believe Madison was being manipulated, that Derek had gaslit her into compliance, that deep down, her daughter was still the good person Eleanor had raised. But that moment in the living room, Derek's right, Mom. You need to be more flexible. That hadn't sounded like a manipulated woman. That had sounded like a woman who'd made her choice. Eleanor closed the notebook and tucked it under her mattress. Outside her window, Portland was still dark, but dawn was coming. And Eleanor Miller, dormant for 18 months, subsumed by grief and loneliness, was waking up. All right, Derek, she thought. Let's see what you're really up to. Tuesday, 2:17 a.m. Eleanor had been waiting for this moment for 3 days, watching, listening, learning the rhythms of her own house like it was enemy territory. Derek was a heavy sleeper. She could hear his snoring through the walls like a chainsaw. Madison took an Ambien every night around 10 p.m., another new habit Eleanor had noticed. By 11 p.m., the house was dead silent. Eleanor lay in bed fully dressed, waiting until 2 a.m. to be absolutely sure. Then she moved. She'd prepared carefully. Thick socks, no shoes, no footstep sounds. Small LED pen light instead of her phone's flashlight. less bright, less obvious. The USB drive she'd dug out from her old work supplies, and a notepad for quick documentation. Her heart hammered against her ribs. 65 years old, and she felt like a teenager sneaking out after curfew, except instead of going to a party, she was about to conduct a criminal investigation on her own family. Not family, she corrected herself, suspects. The hallway was dark. Eleanor moved slowly, placing each foot with deliberate care. The house was old. The floors creaked if you weren't careful. Derek's office door loomed at the end of the hall, locked as always. But Eleanor had lived in this house for 35 years. She knew every quirk, every flaw, including the fact that this particular door lock was original to the house, a 1940s pin and tumbler that could be picked with a bobby pin if you knew what you were doing. Richard had accidentally locked himself out of this room once, and a locksmith had shown them the trick. These old locks are more decorative than functional, the guy had laughed. Eleanor pulled 2 bobby pins from her hair and knelt in front of the door. Her hands shook. She took a breath, steadied herself. You've faced down mob accountants and corporate fraudsters, she told herself. You can handle a locked door. 30 seconds later, she heard the soft click of the lock releasing. Eleanor eased the door open inch by inch, listening for any sound from the master bedroom. Nothing. Just Derek's snoring. She slipped inside and closed the door behind her. The office was dark except for the green power light on Derek's computer. Eleanor clicked on her pen light and swept it around the room. Her old sanctuary, now completely transformed. Derek's massive gaming setup dominated one wall, 3 monitors, LED lights, a chair that probably cost more than Eleanor's first car. The desk was chaos. Energy drink cans, snack wrappers, scattered papers. Eleanor's organized filing system? Gone. Replaced by cardboard boxes shoved into the closet. She started with the desk drawers. Quickly, methodically, the way she used to search suspect offices with a warrant. Drawer 1, junk. Cables, old receipts from Taco Bell and Jack in the Box, a vape pen. Drawer 2, more interesting. Bank statements. Eleanor pulled them out carefully, took photos with her phone on silent mode. Chase bank statement for Derek Sullivan showed balance minus $347.82. Recent transactions. DraftKings minus $500. FanDuel minus $750. BetMGM minus $1,200. Venmo transfer to Tony D minus $2,000 sports betting. Heavy sports betting. Eleanor's jaw clenched. So Derek wasn't just broke, he was gambling and losing. Badly. Drawer 3, jackpot. A folder labeled financial planning in Derek's messy handwriting. Eleanor opened it. Inside, printouts from the joint checking account. Their joint account. Eleanor and Madison's. But the transactions highlighted in yellow were ones Eleanor didn't recognize. Wire transfer to Sullivan Investments, LLC, $5,000. Wire transfer to Sullivan Investments, LLC, $8,000. Wire transfer to Sullivan Investments, LLC, $12,000. Wire transfer to Sullivan Investments, LLC, $25,000. $50,000. Gone. Eleanor's hands trembled as she photographed each page. Sullivan Investments, LLC. Derek's shell company, no doubt. A way to siphon money legally, or at least legally enough that a casual observer wouldn't notice. But Eleanor noticed. She noticed that the authorization forms all had signatures that looked like hers, almost perfect forgeries. Derek had practiced her signature, gotten it nearly right. The slant of the E, the loop of the M in Miller. But Eleanor had worked fraud cases for 30 years. She could spot a forged signature like a bloodhound could smell fear. The R in Eleanor was slightly too curved. Derek had traced her signature from a document, but he'd pressed too hard, making the ink darker than Eleanor's natural writing pressure. Amateur. Eleanor pulled out her USB drive and plugged it into Derek's computer. The password screen popped up. She tried. Madison 123, incorrect. Derek 2023, incorrect. Then, on a hunch, Sullivan $. The desktop loaded. Idiot, Eleanor whispered. She opened his documents folder and started copying everything. Bank statements, emails, PDFs, spreadsheets labeled house sale projections. One file made her blood run cold. Sunrise Valley Memory Care, admission packet.pdf. Eleanor opened it. The first page showed a brochure for Sunrise Valley Memory Care, compassionate Alzheimer's and dementia care for your loved ones. The second page, an admission form for Eleanor Miller. Patient name, Eleanor Miller, age 65. Diagnosis, early onset Alzheimer's disease. Physician, Dr. Patricia Brennan, MD recommended care, level full-time supervised living, monthly cost $8,500. Eleanor's vision blurred. She blinked hard. Dr. Brennan was her actual doctor, but Eleanor had seen her just 2 months ago for a routine checkup. Perfect blood pressure, perfect cognitive function. Dr. Brennan had literally said, "Eleanor, you're sharper than most 40-year-olds I treat." This was fake, a complete fabrication. Eleanor scrolled down. There was a signature on the admission form that was supposedly Dr. Brennan's. She photographed everything, hands shaking with rage. Deeper in the file, an email draft Derek hadn't sent yet, addressed to a lawyer. Subject conservatorship petition, Eleanor Miller. Hi, Tom. Following up on our call last week. My mother-in-law, Eleanor Miller, 65, has been showing significant signs of cognitive decline. My wife, Madison, and I are concerned for her safety. We've secured a medical diagnosis from her physician, Dr. Brennan, confirming early-onset dementia. We'd like to move forward with a conservatorship petition so we can make financial decisions on her behalf. The primary asset is her house at 2847 Laurelhurst Avenue, Portland, recently appraised at $900,000. We need to liquidate this asset to pay for her long-term care at Sunrise Valley facility. Please prepare the paperwork. We're hoping to have this finalized within 60 days. Thanks, Derek Sullivan. Eleanor read it twice, then a third time. They were going to have her declared incompetent, steal her house, lock her in a nursing home. The house Richard had bought for them, the house where she'd raised Madison, the house with 35 years of memories embedded in every floorboard. Derek was going to take it all. The USB drive finished copying. Eleanor ejected it, pocketed it, and was about to close the laptop when she noticed one more folder, Tony_debt.docx. She opened it. It was a ledger, a debt log. Amount owed to Tony, the Shark Delgado, $85,000. Original loan, $50,000. Interest, 15% weekly. $35,000 accrued. Payment deadline, October 15th. Consequences of non-payment. See attached photo. Eleanor clicked the attached photo. Her stomach lurched. It was a picture of a man's hand, or what used to be a hand. 3 fingers were bent at impossible angles. A loan shark. Derek owed $85,000 to a loan shark, and his plan to pay it back, steal Eleanor's house. She heard a sound from the hallway. Eleanor froze, pen light off, holding her breath. Footsteps, heavy ones. Derek. Shit. The office door started to open. Eleanor's mind went into hyperdrive. She couldn't hide under the desk. Too obvious. Closet? No time. She did the only thing she could think of. She opened the office door fully, stepped into the hallway, and put on the most confused expression she could manage. Derek stood there in his boxers, squinting at her. Eleanor? What the fuck are you doing? Eleanor let her shoulders sag, made her voice slightly shaky. Oh, Derek, I'm sorry. I was looking for my blood pressure medication. I thought I left it in here when this was still my office. I get so confused at night. Derek's eyes narrowed. He looked past her into the office, scanning for anything out of place. Eleanor had put everything back. The desk drawers were closed. The computer screen was dark. She'd closed the laptop. Your meds are in your bathroom, Eleanor. In the medicine cabinet, where they've always been. Oh. Eleanor let out a small, embarrassed laugh. Of course, I'm sorry. I don't know what I was thinking. I must be more tired than I thought. Derek stared at her for a long moment. Eleanor could see him calculating, trying to decide if she was really confused or if this was something else. Finally, he sighed. Jesus Christ. Go back to bed, Eleanor, and don't come in my office again. Ever. You understand? Yes, Derek, I'm sorry. Yeah, whatever, just go. Eleanor shuffled back to her room, hunched over like a confused old woman. Only when her door was closed and locked did she straighten up. The USB drive was still in her pocket. The photos were still on her phone. Derek hadn't caught her. She sat on her bed, adrenaline crashing through her system, and looked at her hands. They weren't shaking anymore. Eleanor Miller, senior IRS auditor, had just completed her first reconnaissance mission, and she'd hit the mother lode. Now, she thought, pulling out her notebook, let's build the case. Eleanor didn't go back to sleep. She spent the next 3 hours organizing everything she'd discovered into a proper investigation file. By dawn, she had 147 photos of financial documents, audio recordings. She'd bought a recording pen from Amazon 3 days ago. A complete timeline of Derek's financial exploitation. Names of everyone she needed to contact. At 6 a.m., she made the first call. The phone rang 3 times before a sleepy voice answered. "This better be important. It's 6 in the goddamn morning." "Diane, it's Eleanor Miller." Silence. Then, "Eleanor? Holy shit, I haven't heard from you since Richard's funeral. What's going on?" Diane Foster had been Eleanor's colleague at the IRS for 15 years. Now she ran her own forensic accounting firm, specializing in fraud investigation. She was also one of the smartest, most ruthless accountants Eleanor had ever met. "Diane, I need your help, quietly." "Okay, you've got my attention. I'm being robbed by my own family." Another pause. Then Diane's voice went sharp, professional. "Tell me everything." Eleanor did. The whole story, from the cable incident to last night's investigation. When she finished, Diane let out a low whistle. "Jesus, Eleanor, this Derek asshole is running a textbook elder exploitation scheme. I've seen this pattern before. Isolate the victim, gaslight them, drain the accounts, then commit them to get the house. It's fucking evil, but it works way too often. Can you help me build a case?" "Can I help you?" "Eleanor, I will destroy this guy. Send me everything you've got. I'll do a full forensic analysis, document the fraud, and prepare an expert witness report. This is going to be ironclad." Eleanor felt tears prick her eyes. "Thank you, Diane. Don't thank me yet. We're about to go to war. But Elle, you're going to win. This is what we do, remember? We're the IRS. We don't lose." After hanging up with Diane, Eleanor made the second call. "Walsh Legal Associates, this is Rebecca." "Rebecca Walsh? My name is Eleanor Miller. I need an attorney who specializes in elder law, specifically financial abuse cases." "You've got the right firm, Mrs. Miller. Can you come in today?" "Yes, as soon as possible." The law offices of Walsh Legal Associates occupied a renovated brick building in Portland's Pearl District. Eleanor arrived at 10 a.m. sharp, carrying a leather briefcase Richard had given her 20 years ago. Rebecca Walsh was younger than Eleanor expected, maybe 40, with sharp eyes and a no-nonsense handshake. "Mrs. Miller, please sit. Tell me what's happening." Eleanor opened her briefcase and pulled out the USB drive. "I've documented everything. Financial records, forged signatures, fake medical documents, evidence of a conspiracy to commit me to a care facility and steal my $900,000 home." Rebecca's eyebrows rose. She plugged in the USB drive. 5 minutes into reviewing the files, she looked up. "Mrs. Miller, in 10 years of practicing elder law, I have never seen a victim come this prepared. Most people don't even realize they're being exploited until it's too late. I'm a former IRS senior auditor. Fraud detection is what I do." Rebecca smiled. "Then Derek Sullivan picked the wrong mark. This is textbook elder financial exploitation under Oregon Statute 124.110. We have enough here for both civil and criminal charges. I want them out of my house. Immediately." "We can do that. And more." Rebecca leaned forward. "Mrs. Miller, I want to make an example of these people. Too many families get away with this shit because elderly victims are too scared or embarrassed to fight back. You're not scared, are you?" "No," Eleanor said. "I'm furious." "Good. Let's weaponize that." 2 days later, Eleanor met Detective Sarah Rodriguez from Portland PD's Elder Abuse Unit at a coffee shop in Selwood. Detective Rodriguez was in her early 50s, with tired eyes that had seen too much. She ordered a black coffee and listened while Eleanor laid out the evidence. The forged signatures, the shell company, the fake dementia diagnosis, the conservatorship plan. "It's all here," Eleanor said, sliding the binder across the table. Rodriguez flipped through it, her expression darkening. "Jesus, this Derek asshole is thorough, I'll give him that. But he made one critical mistake." "What's that?" "He targeted someone who knows how to fight back." Rodriguez closed the binder. "Mrs. Miller, I'm going to be straight with you. Most elder abuse cases are hard to prosecute because the victims are confused, the evidence is thin, and families lawyer up fast. But this is a prosecutor's wet dream. You've done 90% of our job for us. So you'll help? Help, ma'am. I'm going to enjoy this. Rodriguez pulled out her phone. I'm calling the DA right now. We're going to bury this guy. Monday morning, 8 a.m. Eleanor watched from her bedroom window as Derek's BMW pulled out of the driveway. Madison was in the passenger seat. They were going job hunting. Derek's words from breakfast. Eleanor knew better. Derek was probably hitting the casino. Madison was probably hitting the mall with Eleanor's credit card. The moment they disappeared around the corner, Eleanor moved. She'd planned this like a military operation. 8:15 a.m. AA Security Solutions van pulled up. 3 technicians got out. Mrs. Miller, we're here to change all the locks. Every single one, Eleanor confirmed. And I want smart locks on the front and back doors, the kind with cameras and keypads. 9:30 a.m. The locksmith finished. 7 new locks, 2 Ring Pro doorbells with cameras, motion sensors on every entry point. Eleanor tested the front door's new smart lock. The keypad glowed. Only she knew the code. 1985, the year Madison was born. A reminder of better days. 10 a.m. Eleanor started packing. She went through Derek and Madison's belongings methodically, without sentiment. Clothes into garbage bags, toiletries into grocery bags. Derek's gaming equipment she left set up. She wanted him to see exactly what he was losing. She didn't use suitcases. Trash bags sent a message. You're garbage, and this is how garbage gets removed. 11 a.m. Rebecca Walsh arrived with Detective Rodriguez and 2 uniformed officers. Everything's ready, Eleanor said. Rebecca handed her a manila envelope. Temporary restraining order signed by Judge Matthews. Derek Sullivan and Madison Miller are prohibited from entering this property. If they violate it, they go to jail. No questions. Detective Rodriguez held up an evidence kit. Mrs. Miller, I need you to walk me through the office one more time. We're executing a search warrant in approximately 6 hours. They went upstairs. Eleanor unlocked Derek's office with her new master key. Rodriguez whistled low. Look at this setup. 3 monitors, top-of-the-line gaming rig. What'd this cost, 5 grand? 6? At least, Eleanor said. Bought with my money. They photographed everything. Rodriguez bagged Derek's laptop, his external hard drives, his filing cabinet full of forged documents. This is enough for felony charges, Rodriguez said. Wire fraud, forgery, conspiracy to commit fraud, attempted conservatorship fraud. We're looking at 5 to 10 years if he's convicted. Eleanor felt nothing, no satisfaction, no guilt, just cold determination. What about Madison? She asked quietly. Rodriguez's expression softened. That's trickier. Did she know about the forgeries, the fake diagnosis, or was she just a wife who trusted her husband? I don't know, Eleanor admitted. I really don't know. Well, we're about to find out. 5:47 p.m. Derek's BMW turned onto Laurelhurst Avenue. Eleanor watched from the living room window, her heart hammering but her hands steady. The car pulled into the driveway. Derek got out first, carrying Nordstrom bags. Madison followed, looking exhausted. Derek approached the front door, pulled out his key, inserted it into the lock. Nothing. He tried again. The key wouldn't even turn. What the fuck? Derek's voice carried through the closed door. Madison, is your key working? Eleanor watched Madison try her key. Same result. Derek's face flushed red. He started pounding on the door. Eleanor, open this fucking door right now! Eleanor counted to 10. Then she opened it. The change in her appearance stopped Derek mid-shout. Gone was the sad, hunched widow in cardigans. Eleanor wore a charcoal business suit, the one she used to wear for depositions. Her hair was styled. Her makeup was perfect. She stood straight, shoulders back, and looked Derek Sullivan dead in the eye. Derek Sullivan and Madison Miller, Eleanor said, her voice cold and clear. You are no longer residents of this property. Your belongings are on the porch. Please collect them and leave. Derek's mouth opened, closed, opened again. You can't do this. We live here. Correction, you occupied here, illegally, for the purpose of financial exploitation and fraud. What the hell are you talking about? Derek tried to push past her. Eleanor didn't move. I wouldn't do that if I were you. This property is under video surveillance, and you're currently violating a restraining order. Restraining order? You crazy bitch, you can't get a restraining order against your own family. Actually, I can. Eleanor pulled out her phone, opened the camera app, and turned it to show Derek and Madison. Smile for the evidence. Everything you say and do right now is being recorded and will be used in criminal proceedings. Madison's face went white. Mom, what's happening? What's happening, Madison, is justice. Eleanor pulled out her iPad and turned it to show the screen. Bank statements, wire transfers, $50,000 in highlighted transactions. Did you know your husband stole $50,000 from our joint account? Did you know he forged my signature 23 times? Did you know he created a fake medical diagnosis to have me declared incompetent? That's bullshit, Derek shouted. She's having an episode. She's confused. This is exactly why we need to get her into a facility. I'm not confused, Derek. I'm a forensic auditor, and you're a fraud. Derek's eyes went wild. He pulled out his phone. I'm calling the cops. You're clearly not mentally competent. Please do, Eleanor said calmly. They're expecting your call. Sirens. 2 Portland PD cruisers turned onto the street, lights flashing. Derek's face shifted from anger to confusion to dawning fear in the space of 5 seconds. What did you do? Detective Rodriguez stepped out of the first car, followed by 2 uniformed officers. From the second car came Rebecca Walsh and another man in a suit. The district attorney. Eleanor recognized him from news broadcasts. Derek Sullivan? Rodriguez's voice carried authority. Yeah, that's me, and I want to report. Mr. Sullivan, I'm Detective Sarah Rodriguez, Portland PD Elder Abuse Unit. You're under arrest for financial exploitation of a vulnerable adult, forgery in the first degree, conspiracy to commit fraud, and attempted conservatorship fraud. What? No, she's the one who's crazy. Check her medical records. A silver Toyota Camry pulled up. Dr. Patricia Brennan stepped out, medical bag in hand. Mr. Sullivan, Dr. Brennan said, her voice like ice. I'm Dr. Patricia Brennan. The signature on those fraudulent dementia diagnosis papers? That was my signature you forged. I'm pressing charges for medical identity theft and fraud. Derek's face drained of color. I don't know what you're talking about. Turn around, Mr. Sullivan. Rodriguez pulled out handcuffs. This is insane, Madison. Tell them I was just trying to help. Tell them Eleanor is sick. But Madison wasn't looking at Derek. She was staring at Eleanor, tears streaming down her face. Mom, she whispered. I didn't know. I swear to God I didn't know about the money. But you knew something, Eleanor said quietly. Didn't you? Madison's face crumpled. Rodriguez cuffed Derek, who was now screaming, You're making a mistake! Check her bank records. I have power of attorney. I have legal authority. You have forged documents, Rodriguez said. There's a difference. She led Derek to the patrol car. He fought every step, screaming threats, screaming Eleanor's name, screaming about lawyers. The neighborhood had come out to watch. Mrs. Chen from next door, the Robinsons across the street, all watching Derek Sullivan get arrested on the front lawn of Eleanor Miller's house. Eleanor felt nothing, just cold, empty satisfaction. Madison stood on the porch, sobbing, trash bags of her belongings at her feet. Madison Miller? The second officer approached. Am I being arrested too? Madison's voice was barely a whisper. Not at this time. But you're a person of interest in an ongoing investigation. Detective Rodriguez will be in touch. The officer left. Madison and Eleanor stood 5 feet apart, a chasm between them. Mom? Don't. Eleanor's voice cracked for the first time. Just, don't. I didn't know about the forgeries, I swear. But I knew he was using your credit cards. I knew he was controlling you, and I let it happen, because it was easier than fighting with him. You chose him over me. I know. Madison's tears fell harder. I know, and I can't take it back. I can't undo it. Mom, I'm so sorry. Sorry doesn't give me back the last 6 months. Sorry doesn't erase the fact that my own daughter stood by while her husband called me worthless in my own home. Eleanor picked up one of the trash bags and held it out. Take your things, leave, and don't come back unless you're ready to face what you've done. Madison took the bag. Her hands shook. Are you pressing charges against me too? Eleanor looked at her daughter, really looked at her, saw the scared, broken woman who'd lost herself trying to please a monster. I don't know yet, Eleanor said honestly. But Madison, you need to decide who you are. Are you Derek's wife, or are you my daughter? Because you can't be both anymore. Madison nodded, grabbed the rest of her bags, and walked to her car. Eleanor watched her drive away. Then she went inside, locked the new smart lock, and allowed herself exactly 5 minutes to cry. After that, she called Rebecca Walsh. It's done, Eleanor said. What's next? Next? Rebecca's voice carried grim satisfaction. Next, we destroy him in court. 3 weeks later, Eleanor sat across from Madison in a quiet corner of Powell's Books Cafe. Madison had asked for this meeting. Eleanor had agreed, mostly out of curiosity. Madison looked terrible. Dark circles under her eyes, hair unwashed. The woman who'd always been so put together was falling apart. Derek's lawyer called me, Madison said, stirring her coffee without drinking it. He wants me to testify that you were showing signs of dementia, that Derek was just trying to help, that everything we did was out of concern. And? Eleanor's voice was neutral. And I told him to go fuck himself. Eleanor's eyebrows rose. Madison met her eyes. I talked to a therapist. A real one, not Derek's bullshit suggestions. She helped me see what was happening. Derek didn't just manipulate you, Mom. He manipulated me, too. She pulled out her phone, opened a video. The DA's office subpoenaed Derek's phone. They found this. Eleanor watched. It was Derek talking to someone off camera. Yeah, the old lady's easy to gaslight. Just hide her shit, tell Madison she's forgetting stuff. And boom, instant dementia story. Madison's so desperate to believe I know what I'm doing, she'll back up anything I say. The person off camera laughed. And the daughter doesn't suspect? Madison? Nah, she's too busy trying to be the perfect wife. She'd throw her own mother under the bus if I asked nicely enough. The video ended. Madison was crying. He knew exactly what he was doing, and I was too stupid to see it. You weren't stupid, Eleanor said quietly. You were abused. There's a difference. Is there? Because I still made choices, Mom. I still stood there and let him pull that cable out. I still agreed you were being difficult. Madison. Eleanor reached across the table, took her daughter's hand. What are you going to do now? The DA offered me a deal. Full immunity if I testify against Derek. Tell them everything. The finances I knew about, the control tactics, the times he practiced your signature in front of me. You saw him practice my signature? Madison nodded miserably. He said he was learning to help you with bills since your hands were getting shaky. I believed him. There's more, Madison whispered. Derek would hide your stuff on purpose. Your glasses, your keys, your pills. Then he'd show me when you were looking for them and say, see, she's losing it. And I fell for it. Every time. Eleanor felt rage and pity warring in her chest. Are you taking the deal? Yes, I'm testifying. Against Derek. But Mom, I know that doesn't fix what I did. I know you might never forgive me, but I need to at least tell the truth now. Eleanor was quiet for a long moment. I don't forgive you, she said finally. Not yet. Maybe not ever, but I'm proud of you for telling the truth. Madison's eyes widened. You are? It takes courage to admit you were wrong, especially when admitting it cost you everything. Eleanor squeezed Madison's hand once, then let go. Do the right thing in court. Then we'll see. Multnomah County Courthouse. 6 months later, the courtroom was packed. Elder abuse cases didn't usually draw crowds, but Eleanor's case had made local news. Former IRS auditor exposes son-in-law's fraud scheme, read the headline in the Oregonian. Derek sat at the defense table in an ill-fitting suit, looking smaller than Eleanor remembered. His lawyer, Tom Berkeley, was a slick corporate type who specialized in making white-collar criminals look sympathetic. Eleanor wore her best suit. She'd lost 15 pounds since Derek's arrest. Stress and anger were great for weight loss, apparently. But she felt strong, sharp, ready. The prosecution's case was devastating. Diane Foster took the stand first, explaining the forensic accounting in terms so clear even the jury couldn't miss it. Mr. Sullivan established a shell company, Sullivan Investments LLC, for the sole purpose of funneling money from Mrs. Miller's account. Over 6 months, he stole $50,000 through 23 separate wire transfers, each one authorized by forged signatures. She projected images of Eleanor's signature versus Derek's forgeries. The forgeries are excellent, Diane said, almost perfect. But Mr. Sullivan made 3 critical errors. She pointed them out. Pressure points, ink flow, microscopic hesitation marks. This isn't someone innocently helping their mother-in-law with bills. This is premeditated fraud. Dr. Brennan testified next, furious and articulate. I never diagnosed Eleanor Miller with dementia. Her last cognitive assessment showed 0 signs of decline. Mr. Sullivan forged my signature and fabricated medical records to support a fraudulent conservatorship petition. This isn't just fraud, it's an attack on medical integrity. Then it was Eleanor's turn. She walked to the witness stand with her head high, took the oath, sat down. The prosecutor, a sharp woman named Jennifer Solis, smiled encouragingly. Mrs. Miller, please tell the jury when you first realized something was wrong. Eleanor looked at the jury. 12 faces, mostly women, mostly middle-aged. People who might have aging parents. People who understood. When my son-in-law ripped a cable out of my TV and told me I was wasting electricity on boomer shit, Eleanor said clearly. And when my daughter stood there and agreed with him. She told the whole story. The isolation, the criticism, the financial control, the locked office, her midnight investigation. I'm a former IRS senior auditor, Eleanor said. I spent 30 years detecting fraud, and I almost missed the fraud happening in my own home because I wanted to believe my daughter and son-in-law loved me, because I was lonely after my husband died, because victims don't want to admit they're being victimized. Derek's lawyer stood for cross-examination. Mrs. Miller, isn't it true you were grieving heavily after your husband's death? That you were confused, isolated, possibly depressed? I was grieving, Eleanor said. I wasn't confused. But you admit you were isolated? Your client isolated me. He took over my home, removed my belongings, and controlled my access to my own spaces. That's not confusion. That's abuse. Isn't it possible you simply misunderstood his intentions? Eleanor looked directly at the jury. I was an IRS senior auditor for 30 years. I investigated financial crimes for a living. I know exploitation when I audit one. And Derek Sullivan is textbook exploitation. The lawyer tried again. You're just a bitter old woman who can't accept, I'm a competent adult who documented criminal fraud. There's a difference. Jury members nodded. The final witness was Madison. She walked to the stand looking fragile but determined. Ms. Miller, Prosecutor Solis said gently, did you know about your husband's plan to have your mother declared incompetent? No, not the full extent. Madison's voice shook. But I knew things that should have made me suspicious. I knew he was practicing her signature. He told me it was to help her with bills. I believed him because I wanted to believe him. Did you know about the theft? Not until the arrest. But I knew he was using her credit cards. I knew he was controlling her. And I let it happen. Madison looked at the jury. I'm guilty too, not of forgery or fraud, but of cowardice. My mother was being abused in her own home, and I chose to side with my husband because it was easier than standing up to him. She turned to Eleanor, tears streaming. Mom, I'm sorry. I failed you, and I'll spend the rest of my life trying to make it right. The courtroom was silent. The jury deliberated for 4 hours. Verdict, guilty on all counts. Derek Sullivan, 5 years in prison, $50,000 restitution, $25,000 in fines. Madison Miller, no charges filed, cooperating witness. Eleanor sat in the courtroom as the verdict was read, feeling nothing. No triumph, no satisfaction, just exhaustion. Outside, Rebecca Walsh hugged her. You did it. You won. Yeah, Eleanor said. I won. But winning felt hollow when you had to destroy your own family to do it. Madison approached hesitantly. Mom? Eleanor looked at her daughter. Really looked. I'm starting therapy, Madison said. Real therapy. And I'm volunteering at an elder abuse prevention center. I want to help other families avoid what we went through. That's good, Eleanor said carefully. Can we maybe get coffee next month, just to talk? Eleanor considered, then nodded. 1 coffee. We'll see how it goes. Madison smiled through tears. Thank you. Eleanor drove home alone. The house was quiet, empty, hers again. She sat in the living room, turned on the TV. PBS was running the Watergate documentary. The cable was connected. Secure, Strong. Eleanor picked up her phone and called the number Rebecca had given her. Second Chances Elder Advocacy? Yes, I'd like to volunteer. My name is Eleanor Miller, and I have some experience with financial fraud. The Cable That Broke the Silence, Part 3, Justice and Redemption, Chapter 11, The Aftermath. 6 months after the trial, Eleanor stood in what used to be Derek's office, now transformed into something entirely different. The gaming equipment was gone, sold on Facebook Marketplace, every penny going into the restitution fund. The walls, once covered with Derek's tacky motivational posters, now displayed framed legal documents. Certificate of Incorporation, the Eleanor Miller Center for Elder Financial Protection, Oregon State Senate, Bill 1847, the Elder Protection Act, Portland Business Journal, Award Nonprofit Advocate of the Year. She'd done this. Built something good from the wreckage. Her phone buzzed. A text from Diane Foster. New client referral. 72-year-old woman, son stole her pension. Sending her your way. You're doing good work, Elle. Eleanor smiled. In 6 months, the center had helped 47 seniors recover over $800,000 in stolen assets. Each case felt personal. Each victory felt like vindication. But some wounds hadn't healed. She hadn't spoken to Madison in 3 weeks. Not since their last coffee date had ended with Eleanor walking out mid-conversation because Madison mentioned Derek's appeal. He's saying he was trying to help you, Mom. That the jury didn't understand. Eleanor had stood up, left a 20 on the table, and walked away. Madison's texts afterward went unanswered. I'm sorry. I wasn't defending him. I was just telling you what he said. Mom, please, can we talk? I know I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I miss you. Eleanor deleted them all. Some betrayals, she thought, were just too deep. A knock on the center's front door. Eleanor glanced at her watch. 7 p.m. They were officially closed. She opened the door anyway. Madison stood there, looking worse than Eleanor had ever seen her. Her hair was pulled back in a messy ponytail. No makeup, sweatpants, and a hoodie that looked like she'd been sleeping in it. I know you don't want to see me, Madison said quickly before Eleanor could speak. But I need to tell you something, face to face. Eleanor considered closing the door. Instead, she stepped aside. 5 minutes. They sat in the center's consultation room, the room where Eleanor had comforted dozens of elderly victims, held their hands while they cried about children who'd stolen their life savings. Now her own daughter sat across from her. Derek called me from prison, Madison said. Eleanor's jaw tightened. You shouldn't be taking his calls. I didn't. He used someone else's phone privileges. But Mom, listen, he threatened me. He said when he gets out, he's coming after both of us. He said you destroyed his life and I betrayed him, and he's going to make us pay. Forward the recording to Detective Rodriguez. I did. She said there's nothing they can do unless he makes a direct threat of violence. This was vague enough to not count. Madison's hands shook. Mom, I'm scared. Not just for me. For you. Eleanor had received her own threatening letters from Derek. She'd filed them away in a folder labeled Evidence, Ongoing Harassment. She wasn't scared. She was prepared. Derek's appeal will fail, Eleanor said calmly. His lawyer is grasping at straws. He'll serve his full sentence, and when he gets out, he'll have nothing. No money, no house, no wife. I divorced him, Madison interrupted. The papers went through last week. I'm not Madison Sullivan anymore. I went back to Miller. Eleanor felt something shift in her chest. You did? Yeah, I should have done it right after the arrest, but I don't know, scared of being alone? Pathetic, right? Madison laughed bitterly. 38 years old, and I still don't know who I am without someone else defining me. You're my daughter, Eleanor said quietly. That's who you are. Madison's eyes filled with tears. Am I? Because I don't feel like I deserve to be. Eleanor was quiet for a long moment. Then she stood and walked to the filing cabinet, pulled out a folder. Do you know what this is? Madison shook her head. This is every case I've worked on in the last 6 months. 47 victims of elder financial abuse. You want to know what they all have in common? What? Their children didn't see it happening. Or they saw it and didn't want to believe it. Or they believed it but didn't know how to stop it. Eleanor sat back down. You're not unique, Madison. You're not the only daughter who failed to protect their parent. The difference is you're trying to make it right. Am I? Because it doesn't feel like enough. It's not supposed to feel like enough. That's how you know you actually give a shit. Chapter 12. The Foundation's Work. 2 weeks later, Eleanor stood at a podium in Portland City Hall, facing an audience of 200 people, city councilors, social workers, attorneys, elderly advocates, and in the third row, Madison. "My name is Eleanor Miller," she began. 18 months ago, I was a victim of elder financial abuse. My son-in-law stole $50,000 from me, forged my signatures, and attempted to have me declared incompetent so he could steal my home. The room was silent. I was lucky. I had professional skills that helped me fight back. I had resources. I had rage. That got a few laughs. But most victims don't. Most victims are isolated, confused, ashamed. They don't report the abuse because it's their own family members doing it. And that shame, that silence, that's what predators count on. Eleanor clicked to the next slide. Statistics filled the screen. 1 in 10 Americans over 60 experiences elder financial abuse. That's 5 million people. The average victim loses $120,000, but 90% of cases go unreported. She let that sink in. The Eleanor Miller Center exists to change that. In 6 months, we've recovered over $800,000 for victims. We've provided free forensic accounting, legal representation, and emotional support. We've helped 47 families fight back. Another slide. Photos of their success stories. Faces blurred for privacy, but testimonials clearly visible. Eleanor saved my mother's life savings after my brother stole it. I thought I was going crazy. Eleanor showed me I was being gaslit. The center gave me my dignity back. But we need more, Eleanor continued. We need legislation that protects seniors. We need mandatory reporting requirements for banks when they see suspicious activity on elderly accounts. We need harsher penalties for family members who exploit vulnerable adults. She looked directly at the city councilors in the front row. That's why I'm here today, to ask you to support Senate Bill 1847, the Elder Protection Act. This bill would require 1. Mandatory elder abuse training for all bank employees. 2. Free forensic accounting services for seniors who suspect financial exploitation. 3. Enhanced criminal penalties for family members convicted of elder abuse. Minimum 5 years. No plea bargains down to probation. 4. A statewide registry of convicted elder abusers, similar to sex offender registries. Murmurs in the crowd. This was controversial. Eleanor knew it, but she didn't care about being polite anymore. Some people say that's too harsh, that families make mistakes, that we shouldn't criminalize people who are just trying to help. Eleanor's voice went hard. But let me tell you something. My son-in-law wasn't trying to help. He was trying to rob me, and he nearly succeeded. The only reason he didn't is because I knew how to fight back. Most victims don't. She clicked to the final slide. A photo of herself and Richard on their 30th wedding anniversary. My husband built our home with his own hands. He worked 2 jobs so we could afford it. He died thinking I'd be safe there, and his son-in-law tried to steal it out from under me before Richard's grave marker was even paid off. Eleanor's voice cracked. She let it. Let them see the emotion. I'm not asking for sympathy. I'm asking for action. Pass this bill. Protect Oregon's seniors. Make sure what happened to me doesn't happen to anyone else. Standing ovation. Eleanor stepped down from the podium, shaking. Madison met her at the stairs. Mom, that was incredible. It was necessary, Eleanor said, but she squeezed Madison's hand. Thank you for being here. I wouldn't miss it. Chapter 13. Madison's Redemption. 3 months later, Eleanor's 66th birthday, Eleanor woke to the smell of coffee and something baking. She grabbed her robe and went downstairs, confused. Madison was in the kitchen, pulling muffins out of the oven. What are you doing here? Eleanor asked. I didn't hear you come in. You gave me a key last month, remember? For emergencies. Madison set down the muffin tin. And your birthday counts as an emergency. You can't turn 66 without proper celebration. I don't need blueberry muffins. Dad's recipe. I found it in his old recipe box. Madison's eyes were bright with unshed tears. I know they won't be as good as his, but I wanted to try. Eleanor sat at the kitchen table, overwhelmed. Richard's blueberry muffins had been legendary. He'd made them every Sunday morning, refusing to share the recipe with anyone. "Family secret," he'd always said with a wink. Madison set a muffin in front of Eleanor, still warm, butter melting into the top. Eleanor took a bite. It tasted like home, like Richard, like the mornings when Madison was 10 years old and the three of them would sit around this same table, talking about everything and nothing. "It's perfect," Eleanor whispered. Madison smiled through tears. "Yeah?" "Yeah." They ate in comfortable silence for a few minutes. Then Madison pulled out an envelope. "I have something else for you. It's not much, but—" Eleanor opened it. Inside, a check for $10,000, made out to the Eleanor Miller Center. "Madison, you can't afford—" "I sold my engagement ring, the one Derek gave me. Turns out it was actually worth something. He'd bought it during one of his winning streaks at the casino." Madison laughed bitterly. Felt right to turn something from that relationship into something good. Eleanor stared at the check. "Are you sure?" "I'm sure. I want to help, Mom. I want to be part of what you're building." "You already are." Eleanor folded the check and set it aside. "Madison, I need to tell you something." "Okay?" "I'm proud of you." Madison's face crumpled. "Don't. Mom, I don't deserve—" "Shut up and let me finish." Eleanor reached across the table, took both of Madison's hands. "You made terrible choices. You hurt me. You betrayed my trust. And for a long time, I didn't know if I could ever forgive you." "I understand. I'm not done." Eleanor squeezed harder. "But I've watched you this past year. I've seen you show up. I've seen you volunteer at the center, helping other families navigate what we went through. I've seen you go to therapy. I've seen you rebuild yourself from nothing. And Madison? That takes more courage than I knew you had. I'm just trying to make up for—" "You can't make up for it. What's done is done. But you can move forward. And you are. Every single day you're choosing to be better. That's not weakness. That's strength." Madison sobbed openly now. "I miss Dad. I miss who I was before Derek. I miss us." "I know, honey. I miss us too." Eleanor stood and wrapped her arms around her daughter. "But we're not that family anymore. We're a new family. One built on honesty instead of silence, on accountability instead of denial, on strength instead of fear. Can we do that? Can we really rebuild?" "We're already doing it." Chapter 14. The blog that went viral. Madison started a blog 3 months after Eleanor's birthday. The Daughter Who Failed, A Journey Back to Integrity. Her first post was titled, "How I Let My Mother Become a Ghost." She wrote, "My name is Madison Miller. I'm 39 years old, and I'm the daughter who stood by while her husband abused her mother. I didn't hit her. I didn't steal from her directly. But I enabled someone who did. I chose comfort over courage. I chose my marriage over my mother's safety. And I need to own that. This blog is my attempt to document the journey back from moral failure, to show other people who failed their families that redemption is possible, but only if you're willing to do the hard work of becoming someone better. This isn't a story about forgiveness. My mother hasn't fully forgiven me, and she shouldn't have to. This is a story about accountability, about looking at yourself in the mirror and seeing the coward you were, and deciding to become someone brave. Here's what I've learned so far. 1. Abuse doesn't always look violent. Sometimes it's a cable yanked from a TV. Sometimes it's a voice telling someone they're worthless until they believe it. Sometimes it's silence when you should speak up. 2. Loving someone doesn't mean enabling them. I thought being a good wife meant supporting Derek no matter what. I was wrong. Good love holds people accountable. 3. It's never too late to tell the truth, even when the truth cost you everything. I lost my marriage. I nearly lost my mother. I lost my self-respect for a long time. But I'm building something new, something honest. If you're reading this because someone in your family is being exploited and you don't know what to do something. Anything. Don't be like me. Don't wait until it's almost too late. The post went viral. 2. 3 million views in the first week. 45,000 shares. Thousands of comments from people sharing similar stories. Her second post, The Day I Chose a Liar Over My Hero. She detailed Derek's manipulation tactics, how he'd isolated Eleanor, how he'd gaslighted both of them, how she'd seen the warning signs and ignored them. More importantly, she listed the red flags other families should watch for. Adult children who suddenly want control of finances. Partners who isolate elderly family members from friends. Unexplained changes to wills or power of attorney documents. Missing belongings or money. Elderly family members becoming fearful or withdrawn. Impact. Within 6 months, Madison's blog had led to 12 police investigations of suspected elder abuse cases. Families reached out saying her posts helped them recognize their own situations. The Oregon State Legislature invited her to testify about Senate Bill 1847. Eleanor watched the testimony on live stream, sitting in her office at the center. Madison stood at the podium, nervous but determined. "My name is Madison Miller. I'm the daughter who failed to protect her mother from financial abuse. I'm here to make sure other families don't make the same mistakes I did." She told the whole story. The cable, the isolation, the theft, the trial, the aftermath. Senate Bill 1847 would have helped my mother fight back sooner. It would have given her more resources, more protection, more options. Please pass this bill. Not for me, I don't deserve your sympathy, but for the thousands of Oregon seniors who are being victimized right now while we sit here debating. The bill passed, 24-6 in the Senate, 48-12 in the House. Governor signed it into law 3 weeks later. Eleanor was there for the signing ceremony. Madison stood beside her. The governor handed Eleanor the signing pen. "Mrs. Miller, this bill exists because of your courage. Thank you." Eleanor turned to Madison, held out the pen. "This belongs to both of us." Madison's eyes widened. "Mom, take it. You earned it." Madison took the pen with shaking hands. "Thank you," she whispered. "Don't thank me. Just keep helping people." Chapter 15. The Cable That Holds. Ending. Christmas Eve. 2 years after Derek's arrest, snow fell softly on Laurelhurst Avenue, dusting the Victorian house in white. Inside, Eleanor Miller sat in her living room, truly her living room now, watching the lights twinkle on the Christmas tree. The house felt different. Better. Whole. The living room had been redecorated. Richard's reading chair was back from the basement, reupholstered in deep burgundy. Eleanor's grandmother's hope chest sat in the corner, polished and filled with photo albums. The walls displayed family photos. Eleanor and Richard's wedding. Madison as a baby. 3 generations together. And on the mantel, the signing pen from Senate Bill 1847, mounted in a small display case with a plaque. The Eleanor Miller Elder Protection Act, because silence enables abuse. The TV was on. PBS was running the Watergate documentary again. Eleanor smiled. She'd seen it a dozen times now, but it never got old. A knock on the door. Madison came in, arms full of wrapped presents, cheeks pink from the cold. "Merry Christmas, Mom." "Merry Christmas, honey." Madison set down the presents and took off her coat. She was wearing the sweater Eleanor had given her last Christmas, soft blue cashmere, with a note that said, "For new beginnings." "How is the center today?" Madison asked. She'd been volunteering there full-time for the past 6 months, coordinating their outreach programs. "Busy. We helped 3 new families file reports. 1 case is already going to the DA. "That's amazing." Madison settled onto the couch beside Eleanor. "Oh, I brought something." She pulled out a manila envelope. "What's this?" "Open it." Inside, the final divorce decree. Derek Sullivan's signature was at the bottom, along with a note from his lawyer. "Mr. Sullivan has waived all rights to appeal. Divorce is final. He will not contest." "It's over," Madison said softly. "Legally, financially, completely over." Eleanor hugged her daughter. "How do you feel?" "Free," Madison laughed. "Terrified, but free." They sat in silence for a moment, watching the documentary. On screen, investigators were explaining how they'd traced the money, followed the paper trail, exposed the corruption. "You know," Madison said, "this was the documentary you were watching that night, when Derek pulled the cable." "I know." "Do you ever think about what would have happened if you hadn't fought back? If you just let him get away with it?" Eleanor considered. "I'd probably be in a nursing home right now. Derek would have sold the house, taken the money, and moved on to his next victim. And you'd still be trapped in an abusive marriage, thinking it was normal." "Jesus," Madison shuddered. "That's dark. But it didn't happen, because I didn't stay silent." Madison looked at her mother. "You saved us both, you know. Not just yourself, Me too. I was drowning and I didn't even know it. You saved yourself, Madison. I just showed you the way out. The documentary ended. Eleanor picked up the remote, about to turn off the TV. Wait, Madison said. Can we watch something together? Maybe one of Dad's old Christmas movies? Eleanor smiled. White Christmas or It's a Wonderful Life? It's a Wonderful Life, definitely. Eleanor found the DVD in Richard's collection. He'd always insisted on having physical copies, in case the internet goes down. She loaded it into the player. As the opening credits rolled, Madison said quietly, Mom, I have something else for you. Madison, you already gave me. It's not a present, it's a question. Madison took a deep breath. The center is expanding. We're opening a second location in Eugene. We need a full-time director of operations, someone who understands the work, who's passionate about it, who families can trust. Sounds like you're describing yourself. I'm asking if you'd let me apply for the job, officially, not as your daughter, but as a qualified candidate. Eleanor looked at Madison, really looked, saw the woman she'd become over the past 2 years, stronger, wiser, humble but determined. You're hired, Eleanor said. But Madison? No special treatment. You screw up, I'll fire you just like any other employee. Madison laughed. Deal. They watched the movie together, quoting the lines they'd memorized as a family decades ago. When George Bailey ran through the snowy streets shouting Merry Christmas, Madison leaned her head on Eleanor's shoulder. I love you, Mom. I love you too, honey. Outside, snow continued to fall. The neighborhood was quiet, peaceful. Christmas lights twinkled in windows up and down the street. Eleanor looked at the TV. The cable connection was perfect. She'd upgraded to a new system last year, professional installation, everything color-coded and organized. That cable Derek had yanked out? Eleanor had kept it. It sat in a shadow box in her office at the center, labeled, the cable that started it all. But that old cable wasn't the important one anymore. The important connection was the one sitting next to her on the couch, the one she'd almost lost and then fought like hell to rebuild. Eleanor's phone buzzed. A text from Detective Rodriguez. Merry Christmas, Eleanor. FYI, Derek's appeal was officially denied. He's serving the full 5 years. Thought you'd want to know. Eleanor showed the text to Madison. Good, Madison said simply. He deserves every day of it. Agreed. Eleanor put her phone away. Derek Sullivan was the past. A closed chapter. A cautionary tale. This, her daughter beside her, the center thriving, lives being saved. This was the future. Final scene. 3 hours later, after the movie ended and they'd finished the leftover pie, Madison prepared to leave. Same time next week? For New Year's? Madison asked, bundling into her coat. Absolutely. Bring champagne. We're celebrating. Celebrating what? 300 families helped. $4.2 million recovered. Senate Bill 1847 expanded to 4 states. And, Eleanor smiled, the fact that we made it through hell and came out the other side. Madison hugged her mother tight. I'm proud to be your daughter. I'm proud you're my daughter. Now get out of here before you get all sappy on me. Madison laughed and left. Eleanor stood in the doorway, watching her daughter's car pull away, taillights disappearing into the snowy night. Then she went inside, locked the door, new smart lock, new security system, new sense of safety, and returned to the living room. The TV was still on, playing the menu screen for It's a Wonderful Life on loop. Eleanor sat in Richard's chair, picked up the framed photo from the side table, her and Richard on their wedding day, impossibly young, impossibly happy. We did it, Richard, she whispered. Our girl came back. She's going to be okay. We're going to be okay. The house was quiet, but it wasn't the silence of a ghost haunting her own home. It was the silence of peace, of safety, of a life rebuilt from ashes. Eleanor looked at the TV cable, new, strong, properly connected. Some things, once broken, couldn't be fixed, but some things could be rebuilt, stronger than before. She turned off the TV, turned off the lights, and went upstairs to bed. Tomorrow, the center would open. More families would come seeking help. More victims would find their voices. And Eleanor Miller, former ghost, former victim, now advocate, would be there to help them fight back. Because nobody deserved to feel like a ghost in their own home. And thanks to her, to Madison, to the center, to Senate Bill 1847, fewer people would have to.